Lead is a heavy metal that is not safe in any amount. That's the truth. Like heavy metals like lead, mercury, arsenic, they're not safe to consume in any amount. We cannot say that they are safe. Whereas, there are some other metals like iron and zinc that are toxic in very high amounts, but actually essential to your body, right? As a sports dietitian, I'm always like, you need your iron, you need your zinc. Those are also heavy metals, but they're essential for your body to function. Lead is not essential. In fact, any amount of it is technically toxic. So there is no amount that we can declare to be safe. Did you know the average woman spends 7 years of her life dealing with period pain? WaveBy believes it's time to get those years back. Founded by an OBGYN, WaveBy is the first science-backed solution that regulates menstrual cycle and reduces period pain before it even starts. WaveBy has 3 products. By Irregularity from WaveBy is designed to help your cycle find its rhythm again. Packed with clinically studied nutrients like inositol, magnesium, and chasteberry, By Irregularity supports healthy ovulation, hormone balance, and smoother, more predictable cycles without prescription or hormones. By Cramps and By Bad Cramps are the proactive premenstrual products that target the prostaglandin messengers that cause cramps and heavy bleeding, so your life doesn't have to stop every month. Think of it as the new Midol, backed by science, built by women, and designed to keep you feeling like yourself. Join the thousands who have already said it's absolutely life-changing, including myself. I've been taking this product every day for nearly 6 months. I take By Irregularity and By Cramps, and it has absolutely reduced my cramping and regulated my cycle. It is super predictable. So head to wavebuy.co and use the code Lindsey Cortes for 10% off. Say bye to irregular or painful cycles and hi to your true rhythm. Because when your cycle's in sync, everything else just flows. Lindsey Cortes for 10% off your WaveBuy purchase. Hello, welcome back to those regular listeners to the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast. And if you're new, welcome. I'm Lindsey Cortes, registered dietitian, sports dietitian, and of course, the host of this show. We've got a solo episode today where I wanted to dive into the news headlines that there might be scary amounts of lead in your protein powder. We're going to chat about that today. I want to share my opinions. I want to share what the article and the report says. I want to share some science and facts, what we know, what we don't know about lead and its prevalence in the protein powders, and then my opinions on it and maybe what you should or could do about it. Yeah, so that's what we're going to chat about today. Real quick, I wanted to update you that I just touched up my website, lindseycortes.com. That's Lindsey with an E and Cortes with an S, lindseycortes.com, because over the past 2 years, I've been on and off with what services I provide. But at this foreseeable time, my main offerings are this podcast. I hope you listen to it. It is free to listen, although we do accept donations, which help to keep this free podcast going. So you can support the podcast at lindseycortes.com/podcast. You'll see a button to support the show as you do listen to it. The next thing going on is my REDS recovery membership. If you are concerned about REDS, or if you're a female athlete trying to recover or simply trying to fuel your body to prevent REDS, we do a weekly group call, Q&A, ongoing group support, and it's very affordable, just $15 a month. Check that out on the website as well. And I've had the opportunity to do some presentations to groups of female athletes. I've been doing this over the years, but really trying to lean into that from a business perspective more, linking up with Voice in Sport. I've been a partner with them for a while. The Elite Competitor as well. I was so grateful to be a part of their dream team this fall semester. So if you are a coach, a company, an organization that's looking for presentations, nutrition materials, education, you can partner with me. And again, head to my website to get in contact and talk about what that might look like. Last on the website is, and in the show notes as well, are links to a few discounts and deals you might want to take advantage of. My favorite product that I'm currently using right now is Wave By to help optimize menstrual cycle health. And it helps for me personally to really reduce PMS symptoms like cramping and bloating. I've seen, and my mood as well. I'm seeing an improvement. So they gave me 3 months worth of free product. And since then, I've been continuing to use it because it truly does help. So you can go to waveby.co, link in the show notes, and the discount code is Lindsey Cortes if you're interested in reducing PMS pain so that you can live life to the fullest while still optimizing and encouraging the importance of a menstrual cycle for your health. Okay, let's get to the episode, which is today. Let's see, the date of recording this is October 23rd. Probably the date of release is going to be like the first week of November. And Consumer Reports published an article October 14th, which was headlined. Actually, let me pull the headline up here on my computer. The headline: Protein powders and shakes contain high levels of lead. Protein supplements are widely popular, but Consumer Reports tests of 23 products found that more than 2/3 of them contain more lead in a single serving than our experts say is safe to have in a day. So that is a very strong headline, just saying protein powders have lead in them, and that most protein products tested had very high levels of lead, more than is recommended in a whole day in just one serving. That's a very strong headline. And real quick, when I first heard this, what my initial thought was, I thought we already knew this. Consumer Reports has done this same thing before. And when I went back to look at it, I think it was in 2010 they did it, and again in 2017. But I will say that interestingly, their test this time around, which began in 2024, so it's been over the course of a year of testing products, that they found even higher amounts in this most recent testing of lead and heavy metals in pulling products off the shelf than they did in the past. So yeah, for me personally, I was just like, I thought we already knew this. And I'm not saying everybody knew this. I'm saying me as a registered dietitian, I knew that heavy metals, including lead, can be in protein powders or any supplements for that matter. But Consumer Reports specifically has tested this before and found this before. So I was already aware of this. And I'm not saying everybody else was, but I was already aware of it. So I was kind of like, okay, why are we freaking out about it now? And I suppose the reason people are freaking out about it is because they either A, didn't know about it before because it's been a number of years, and the way we receive news and information has changed with now social media, getting people this information ASAP and sharing it and all of that. And B, maybe potentially because the levels found in this most recent test were even higher than past reports. So, maybe there's a little bit more concern there. But I want to back up for a moment and just tell you who Consumer Reports are, right? This is the test done by Consumer Reports. This was not when we talk about like peer reviewed journals and scientific studies and having a control group and all that, this is not that. Consumer Reports is an independent organization that is really putting themselves in the shoes of the consumer, where it's like, hey, maybe there's scientific evidence here. Maybe the company says it has their certifications over here, but we're just, as a consumer, we're going to go to the shelves. We're going to take products off the shelves and we're going to test them ourselves. So I'm real simply putting into Google, nothing fancy here, but I just put into Google, what is Consumer Reports, so that you understand where the source of this information is coming from. And my Google AI overview says Consumer Reports is an independent nonprofit organization that tests, rates, and reviews products and services to help consumers make informed decisions. It provides unbiased guidance through its magazine, websites, and other media, and advocates for a safer and fairer marketplace. The organization is funded primarily through member subscriptions and donations, not advertising. As far as what products and services they review, they conduct extensive testing research on thousands of products and services, from cars and appliances to financial and health products. Yeah, and then the organization reaches consumers through various channels, including its flagship magazine, website, consumerreports.org, broadcast shows, and social media. So, upfront, like I'm a fan of Consumer Reports. I think that's wise. We don't always want to just trust a company and trust that it says it's got this certification or label, or it says it's got XY ingredients. It's like, I'm going to test this for myself. That's what Consumer Reports is doing. And so that's what they did. Now, so again, breaking this down, if you look at the article published by Consumer Reports, they took 23 protein powders and ready to drink protein shakes off the shelves. I don't know how many brands exist out there, but there's far more than 23. I do think that when we break down the fact that, as their reports say, over 70% of these products contained lead in one dose higher than they recommend in one day. They picked a variety of brands, I guess I'm just trying to say we don't know that these 23 brands are a snapshot of all of the products that are out there, but it could be. It's potential, right? And we can just identify that as, this doesn't say that every protein powder has lead. It says that greater than 70% of the 23 that were tested had lead. So just take with that what you will. One of the most important things that I need to point out to you right now is that this article says greater than 70% contain lead in amounts higher than Consumer Reports recommends in one day. So the question I had was, well, what does Consumer Reports recommend? And it's a little silly because at the end of the day, I understand that lead is a heavy metal that is not safe in any amount. That's the truth. Like heavy metals like lead, mercury, arsenic, they're not safe to consume in any amount. We cannot say that they are safe. Whereas, there are some other metals like iron and zinc that are toxic in very high amounts, but actually essential to your body, right? As a sports dietitian, I'm always like, you need your iron, you need your zinc. Those are also heavy metals, but they're essential for your body to function. Lead is not essential. In fact, any amount of it is technically toxic. So there is no amount that we can declare to be safe. And I don't say that to freak you out. I'm just trying to say there is nothing safe. We can say this about alcohol too. Alcohol is a toxin to the body. The moment you ingest it, harm happens to your body. There is no amount of alcohol that is actually safe, which is a topic for another day about how the industry and nutrition industry, even and health industry, has tried to market, one glass of wine a day to be helpful and things like that. Actually, no, it's a toxin. And so is lead. And so is mercury. It is a toxin. And I'm not trying to freak you out, because one thing I really want to stress is that we are all exposed to toxins. We can, as a consumer and an individual, it's important to be educated and aware so that you can do your best to reduce exposure, especially if you're having symptoms or you are in a delicate state of health. I understand why you want to do everything you can, but there's other people who have no symptoms, are really healthy, and this just might not be a super big concern for you right now, and that's fine. So again, there is no safe amount, and yet, just like with alcohol, yeah, there's no safe amount, but the body does figure out a way how to process this toxin and get rid of it. The thing with lead is that it can really build up over time, and who lead is most dangerous to are developing children and pregnant women, because it affects the developing child that they are growing and bringing life to. Because one of lead's scariest impacts is on brain development. In fact, I remember when my firstborn turned 2 years old, it was optional in the state of Texas where we resided or currently reside, but it was strongly recommended to do a blood test on my 2-year-old in order to test for lead, because lead can build up, and it is most dangerous to the developing brain with neurological damage, nervous system damage, brain damage that can affect development and, cognition and mental function and all of that, learning delays, behavioral problems. And there might be a few other things too, like immune suppression, kidney damage, reproductive problems. And one other reason that they test children too is because when children are little, they put a lot of things in their mouth, right? They have that oral fixation and sucking, and then they're teething. And lead is something that can be in like household items like paint chips. So if, I know this sounds silly, but like little babies do weird things, like if they're like licking the wall or biting on a pencil, and that legitimately happened. One time I caught one of my babies, like he had a pencil somehow and he's like chewing on it. It's like, no, that's not good, right? And then if you do have an older home, and I'm not the expert on this, and I fortunately live in a new home, so I wasn't concerned, but some like older homes, just like some older homes might have asbestos, some older homes might have more lead in it and things like that. So there's lead in our environment and in our products. And as as an adult, it can build up over time, but it's most damaging when the brain and nervous system are developing, such as in a fetus or in a young born baby and a developing child. And just in case I didn't hit on this perfectly, I'm not aware of all the sources of lead, but like I mentioned a few already. And then it can just be in our soil. So when we're thinking about how the heck does it get in protein powders, it could truly be from it's in our soil. And so plants that are grown might have trace amounts of lead in it, which is actually why Consumer Reports, and this is consistent with their past reports, found that the plant-based protein powders had higher levels of lead in it than the animal or whey-based protein powders. So that might be from our soil, it's in our environment, it's in the air, it can be in our food, but it could also be in manufacturing. And what is the equipment or the storage containers? Like, do those have trace amounts of lead that's getting absorbed? So there's a lot, like lead is in our environment. And again, I'm not trying to freak us out. I just want us to know, like, this is a heavy metal that exists in the world. And so as we live our life, we are going to have exposure to it somewhere along the way. And we do want to limit exposure, of course, and we do want to be extra careful when we are pregnant or as parents of little ones. You can get your little one tested. If you're concerned, you can get tested, a blood test. And just like when women are pregnant, they also caution you against consuming high mercury foods and things like that as well. Like mercury can be found in some of those big fish. Like you don't necessarily want to be eating big tuna or swordfish. That's a big one. Sorry. You don't want to eat swordfish when you're pregnant. You can have fish, that's okay, but you don't want to be consuming it every single day because we don't want to build up that mercury exposure. All right. So I'm digressing a little bit because I'm just trying to educate you on like lead exposure, all of that, who we're most concerned about. So even though there is no safe amount, the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, does have what they call an interim reference level, which is an estimate on lead consumption or exposure. It's an estimate to help protect you from lead toxicity. So this amount is set, not saying if you go over it, you're at a toxic amount. It's saying this is an amount of lead that if you're exposed to that, even on a daily basis, over time, you still should not experience lead toxicity. And that amount for children, who we assume are in smaller bodies, is 2.2 micrograms per day. And for adults, it is actually not adults. This is only set for women of childbearing age, 8.8 micrograms per day. But I'm just going to say adults because even if you're not a woman of childbearing age, let's just kind of assume that these levels are set based on child body size versus adult body size. But the FDA only has this limit set. That's not even a limit. It's a interim reference level saying we believe that if you consume as a child up to 2.2 micrograms per day and as a woman of childbearing age 8.8 micrograms per day, you should not experience toxicity. They're not saying there's no risk of it, but it's saying this is a reasonably this is a reasonable amount where we should be safe from toxicity as to where we get concerned. Okay, so now the question is, what was Consumer Reports level set at? Keep those two numbers in mind, 2.2 micrograms and 8.8 micrograms for adults per day. Consumer Reports set their limit of lead exposure to be 0.5 micrograms per day. So they set it much lower. I haven't discovered why they set it lower, although once again, we could say, well, there's no safe amount of lead. So I understand that. Like the lower, the better, sure. But they set their reference so low that when their report says things like some products contain 1,500% of the recommended amount, it's like, well, recommended compared to what? Your super, super low level, right? I would ultimately say, is that amount still of concern? Fans, I'm pausing the conversation again to check in on you. Are you concerned that you have REDS? That's relative energy deficiency in sport. It's a syndrome of not ideal health consequences and performance consequences that all stem from the idea that you're not fueling optimally or fueling enough for your sport needs. I've become an expert in this over the years because, unfortunately, a lot of female athletes struggle with this. We have research that shows sometimes up to 90% of female athletes might be suffering from at least one of the side effects of REDS. Other research says that up to 45% of female athletes are struggling with disordered eating. These are big statistical numbers, and I don't like it. I'm here to help you become fierce, fit, and fueled. So first and foremost, head to lindseycortes.com/REDS to learn more about REDS, listen to past podcast episodes, and take our free REDS quiz to see if this might be a concern for you. From there, I've got 3 ways to help you. 1, download the REDS Recovery Guide and start taking action right away. 2, join our REDS Recovery membership. For a very affordable $15 a month, you will have access to me as a sports dietitian to educate and empower you to fuel better. We meet once a week for live calls, Q&A. You have access to the recordings if you can't join live, and a community group chat to support, encourage, and motivate you along the way to fuel fiercely. Last, spots are limited for one-on-one help, but I can help you personally through one-on-one coaching, be it my Fast Track program, the Female Athlete System of Transformation, or perhaps Fuel School, depending on your age. All of that is on my website, lindseycortes.com. But because one-on-one spots are limited, I really want to encourage you to join the REDS Recovery membership. We live in a world where it's very easy to just pop online, read an article, listen to a podcast, and I think we do a decent job at getting information out there, but we all need someone to talk to and really ask those personal questions, and also be open and honest in a community that's going to support you in your fueling needs and goals. And that's exactly what this membership is. So only $15 a month. We meet once a week, and you will be provided with so much education and empowerment and support. I know you won't regret joining. Head to lindseycortes.com/REDS, and there you will see the REDS Recovery membership that you can join, and join us this week. It's time for you to be fierce, fit, and fueled. Based on their products, I've decided on this podcast episode, I'm not going to name the brands and say the amounts, because if this is a concern to you, then you can very easily find the report. I'll even link it in the show notes. This is public information. But if y'all have listened to my podcast before, I don't like fear mongering. And there's many things that we could concern ourselves about with health. And if I say a brand and you're like, oh my God, I'm taking that, I don't want you to freak out. But if you're, as a listener right now, being like, I would love to choose a lower lead protein powder, I'm going to go ahead and look and see which ones are the lowest, and go ahead and do that. But I'm not trying to freak anyone out, because at the end of the day, and I'll give you my takeaway at the end of this, but at the end of the day, I don't need you freaking out about this. But if you do read the Consumer Reports, out of their 23 of them, there were 2 brands that were kind of above that, or very close to the amount of, like, maybe consuming 7 or 8 micrograms a day. So I can rationalize, oh, this wouldn't be good for a child. Although, are we giving protein powder to our children? That's a question in and of itself because I would say as a dietitian, I don't I don't think you should give protein powder to children. However, it's really interesting because, as many of you know, I have a child with a rare disease, and it's been in our rare disease Facebook community pages over the past week of, oh my gosh, what are we doing about protein powder? Because it's part of his disease management to add extra protein to his diet. And there's a lot of feeding concerns. My kid eats like 2 tablespoons of food a day, so I can't just give him more chicken all the time. And so I have dabbled. He's only 2 years old, so we're not in a regular routine of protein powder for him, but I know that it will be soon part of his diet. So there's somebody, my own child, that even though as a dietitian, I would say for children, I don't recommend them having protein powder. We don't need to introduce supplements to children. We want whole foods. But there are some cases where some children might be consuming protein powder. And so, because the amount of lead should be as little as possible for children with developing brains and neurological systems, if your child does require a diet with protein powder, what I would recommend you do is a whey based protein powder because those had way less lead in the whey protein powder. So whey is coming from dairy, animal-based protein powders. And the plant-based ones, specifically the pea protein powder, seem to have the highest. And again, I don't know why. Is it because of the soil? Is it something about how peas are grown, or is it something to do with the manufacturing? I think it really has something to do with the pea protein specifically. Peas, as in like green peas. So if your child is consuming protein powder, I would just urge you to aim for a whey-based one. I would urge you to do more whole foods and limit the protein powder amount, because that's another thing too. If I think about the scoop in the Consumer Reports was doing per dose, right? And many protein powders, like one scoop of it is a 20 to 30 gram protein dose. Well, maybe a child only needs half a scoop. Maybe a child only needs a quarter of a scoop, because that's the case with my son. When I have dabbled with protein powder with him, I'm adding an extra 5 grams, not an extra 20 grams. He doesn't need 20 grams of protein at a time. He's a child, right? So there's that to consider, is that, well, his dose of it is smaller anyways. All right. I can talk, ladies and listeners. I'm just trying to consolidate my thoughts because when I do these solo episodes, I can just keep going on and on. So where I was at was just looking at these numbers. At the end of the day, the Consumer Reports, there were really two brands that did have in a serving that were like kind of up near 7 micrograms per dose. And remember, I mentioned that women of childbearing age should probably safely be 8.8 micrograms per day or under. So, yeah, I guess I could argue we can do better than those two brands. And I would hope that those two brands, maybe with this news, reevaluate. Is it where they're sourcing their ingredients from? Is it their production and manufacturing? Do they need a label just to kind of warn? And frankly, most supplements say if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, consult your doctor. Not that your doctor always has all the answers, but there's a warning like right there. I know when I was pregnant and breastfeeding, I was extra cautious with supplements and engaged in things, even as normal as protein powder. We've normalized protein powder to be like a food group, but it is still a supplement. And that's what you have to remember. Maybe eating peas exposes you to very, very, very trace levels of lead, but it's now concentrated, super, super, super concentrated. And that's where supplements of any kind become a concern, is that things are super concentrated. The next thing as a consumer I want you to be aware of is, again, maybe you do want to find an alternative option besides these two that were super high. The next thing is to maybe consider a whey-based one, which, personal opinion here, tastes way better. Whey has way lower lead and it tastes way better. It just, oh, but I'm biased. That's my personal opinion. I'm just not a fan of plant-based protein powders. I just feel like I'm drinking dirt, and that's just not something I want to do. But I understand that some people have reasons that they don't want to consume dairy or animal-based protein powders. Side note, just education here. If it is because of lactose content, there should be minimal lactose in a protein powder because they've taken out most of the carbohydrates out and it's concentrated protein. But there are different levels of whey protein. So you have protein, whey protein, concentrate, hydrosate, and isolate. If you are sensitive to dairy and lactose from like a digestive place, then the isolate, whey protein isolate, it is isolated protein. There should be 0 grams of carbohydrate, which means 0 grams of lactose. So if lactose is the issue, look for the whey protein isolate, and that will help you out. Moving on, what I wanted to say is, yeah, consider whey protein, consider some of the brands that were lower. But the next thing, too, because Consumer Reports didn't test a lot of products, is to look for a third party certification. In the sports industry, even though the FDA is not testing supplements, the sports industry, we know many athletes that are getting drug tested, and we need to be really safe about what products we're putting in our body, that they are not containing banned ingredients, that they are not contaminated with banned substances. And so there are some third party organizations such as NSF for Sport or Informed Choice for Sport that test certain products. So, product A would pay money for this other company to test their product and make sure there are no banned or contaminated ingredients in there. And both of those two independent companies I just mentioned, NSF for Sport and Informed Choice for Sport, do test for heavy metals as well. Now, the amount, I had to do some digging. NSF for Sport does test for heavy metals, and they will give their stamp of approval as long as a product has less than 10 micrograms per, it says per day, even though it's got to be per serving, because it's how many scoops are recommended, how many servings are recommended per day. It's usually like 1 to 2 servings per day. So I honestly need a little clarification there, but NSF for Sport will put their stamp of approval as long as the lead is in amounts less than 10 micrograms per day or per serving. So that is a little bit higher than the amount that is recommended for women of childbearing age or children, for sure, higher. But again, maybe you don't fall into either one of those categories, right? So, I can't say that 10 micrograms per day is safe. I can't say it's safe, but it appears that you're not going to have lead toxicity, which is when the neurological damage really happens, when we build up to toxic levels. So I think that's another thing you as a consumer can do, right? It's if you're really interested, read the consumer reports and look at the brands that have the really high amounts and maybe make a different choice. 2, consider whey protein. And 3, consider a whey protein that has an NSF for Sport label, because it's that extra level of testing, or Informed Choice for Sport. It's that extra level of testing to make sure that not just lead, but all other heavy metals too, like mercury, arsenic, and of course, banned ingredients not present at all. And the heavy metals are very low amounts. All right. As I read the Consumer Reports article, it appears that they reached out to the products and companies that they tested to kind of get their thoughts. And it was interesting too, because quite a few of them kind of responded. Like one company said, well, we actually do comply with NSF standards. So they're like, yeah, you might be saying we've got high levels of lead compared to your standard, but we're complying with NSF standards. It's the National Federation for Sanitation Safety, which is, they do a lot. NSF does a lot of things. Like they do safety and sanitation standards for a lot of products, and supplements is just one category of what they do. Another company said, actually, since that product you tested is no longer in production, we've discontinued that product and we've changed our formulation. And they didn't necessarily say we changed our formulation because of this, but they just said, well, that product doesn't exist anymore. We've been, you know, finding better quality ingredients, and we have confidence in our current products on the shelves. Another company said, yeah, we've recently done, actually, this was funny. This comment came from a company who had like the lowest lead amount, but probably just the fact that their name was thrown in there altogether. They're probably trying to deal with the bad press that has come with it. And they said, yeah, actually, we're currently doing an overhaul of our entire product line and we are beginning to source for better quality ingredients. So, maybe things like this with consumer reports is less about scaring you, the consumer, and more about pushing the companies and brands to continue to do better. I think that's what we should take away from this because I definitely have seen many people online freak out. Like I mentioned in my own Facebook group for my son's rare disease, people are like, oh my God, what am I not supposed to give them protein anymore? And again, as a consumer, it's always good to be aware because you have a choice as to what you are buying. And I think what Consumer Reports really did is continuing to challenge brands on being better, especially in the supplement industry, which is a completely unregulated industry. It really is. And so we've come a long way because yeah, back in like the 90s and early 2000s, it was like the wild wild west out there with supplements. Like you were putting something in your body, you had no clue what it was. Like like and maybe this was more in like yeah, like the bodybuilding fitness world, but it really was. And this is scary could be really scary for athletes as well to pop hot on a drug test. And this, like, we have recent stories of this with athletes that are well known and well respected that suddenly have a positive, like, doping test and they're trying to figure out what it's from. So you do want to be aware as a consumer. But I think more than anything, I think that this is good to challenge the companies so that as a consumer, you know where you're putting your money. We don't want to keep giving our money and our health to a company that doesn't have your health in its best interest. So let me look over my notes if I had any other thoughts to share with y'all. Oh, yes. So those are my kind of takeaway thoughts. And if you actually read the Consumer Reports article, what's really interesting is their conclusion as well, despite that big scary headline, "A protein powder has lead," their conclusion is, "We don't want anybody to freak out." I'm laughing because it's like, then why'd you make such a big scary headline? And I even watched a news outlet interview this woman who is the Consumer Reports manager of food safety research, and her conclusion was like, we don't want people to freak out. Like, lead is everywhere. People are exposed to lead all the time. We just want them to consider reducing their intake of protein powder and encouraging whole foods. That was their takeaway. And as you read the article, they also kind of express their concern over the cultural push on protein. So I think their intent was actually less about demonizing protein powder and it was more about encouraging people to get back to whole foods. And you know what? I'm a big fan of that as well. I believe that as athletes, we do have a higher energy need, we have a higher protein need than a non athlete. And sometimes we do need those like convenience foods, which might be protein powder that I can throw in a shaker bottle and bring to the gym with me because I can't just easily bring chicken breasts to practice with me, right? So we do lean on maybe more protein and protein powders more than the general public. So again, as an athlete, maybe you want to make some informed choices about what brands you have. But I think ultimately the message was we might not need to be pushing protein powder on everybody. Let's get back to eating real whole foods for our protein. So, yeah, despite the big scary headline, the article and people from Consumer Reports themselves were really just trying to encourage the whole foods approach towards diet and that this cultural shift of protein, protein, protein all the time, everybody more is better. They're trying to remind you that more is not always better. Everything in moderation. I mean, dietitians are always saying that as well. Everything in moderation. And so supplements should be consumed in moderation. Protein powders should be consumed in moderation. And protein in general, they were even saying should be consumed in moderation. We do not need that much all the time. as a sports dietitian and, an athlete myself, I've gone in and out of kind of phases of my own life of consuming protein powder. I mean, I've gone, even as a high level athlete, I've gone months and years without consuming protein powder. And funny enough, over the past 6 months, I think I consume protein powder at least once every other day. Maybe I might even say 5 times a week, like a little bit more than that. And it comes down to convenience and timing and schedule of I'd rather be fueled than underfueled. And therefore, I'm going to quickly have this protein shake so that I've gotten something in, or I'm doing my workout and then I'm going right into something with the kids or a meeting, or maybe for you, it's classes. Like, get that protein shake in because I'm going to eat my meal with carbs, proteins, and fats later. But right now, I just need to recover and be fueled. That's why we might choose a protein powder. So, but I also just want to remind you that you don't have to have protein powder. Like I said, I've gone months and years without having it. And a lot of that is because I get sick of the flavor. Like I already mentioned that I'm not a personal fan of pea or plant-based protein powders, and whey protein that I really like better, I should say. Sometimes I'm still like, oh, this tastes like protein powder. I don't want that. I just want to eat food that tastes good. And this doesn't taste good to me. So I go in and out of phases with it. And so you can get your protein from other sources just as easily as you are going to pack a protein shake in your bag. You can throw a couple meat sticks in your bag. You can throw a Whole Foods based bar. You can make a turkey sandwich on bread. How long does that take you to put 5 slices of deli turkey in between 2 slices of bread and put it in a Ziploc bag? I understand it takes some time, but it does not take that long. It's not a gourmet sandwich. It's just your fuel. Throw it in your bag and go. Cheese sticks, individual Greek yogurt containers, individual cottage cheese containers, hard boiled eggs. Bring those with you. If you're like, oh, but I need a refrigerator, you can get an ice pack in a little bag. Everybody carries a bag wherever they go. Nobody's leaving the house without a bag anymore. Put an ice pack in there. Bring it with you. There are other options. You don't need protein powder. Non-refrigerated or plant-based options, nuts, trail mix, almonds, peanuts, dried edamame. That's a good one to pack with you. And maybe it's not a protein shake or powder, but maybe it's just a drink, right? So like milk, chocolate milk, or even that plant-based Ripple milk, which is coming from peas. So I'd be curious about their lead amount in there too. But so that Ripple plant-based, that's a higher protein, non-dairy milk, soy milk. And guess what? So many of these come in ultra high pasteurized shelf stable options for, again, throw it in your bag. It's not going to go rancid, right? So Silk makes a chocolate soy milk that's like in a carton. Bring that with you. It's not a protein shake. It's just soy milk. So I hope, I really hope that I educated you on this topic and given you options so that we are not scared of protein powder. However, we also understand that there are different types of protein powder that we as a consumer can choose, ones that align with our health goals and things we care about, that we can push companies and brands to source their ingredients better, that we can choose brands that have extra certification, just a little extra cleanliness of their product per se. We can be extra vigilant and aware of what we put in our bodies when we are of childbearing age or pregnant, and aware of what we are putting in our children's bodies as they are growing and developing. And at the end of the day, we can always lean back into whole foods and go back to protein from your beans, from your nuts, from your seeds, from your dairy, from your chicken, from your beef. And we can lean into whole foods and rely on supplements less. I hope that this episode was helpful. I'm glad I got to dig into it myself because I wasn't even aware of levels of lead that, like I said, nothing is safe. And yet we do have amounts that we believe are reasonable to prevent toxicity. And that was nice for me to educate myself on it as well. So thanks for listening. Thanks for the opportunity to share this information with you. I will link the Consumer Reports link in the show notes, as well as the FDA has some guidelines about lead in food and food products. So I'll link that as well. Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Please help spread the message of empowering female athletes to be fierce, fit, and fueled by giving this podcast a 5-star review and leaving a comment. You can also help more female athletes by sending this episode to a friend. Head to lindseycortes.com for more resources, information, more episodes, ways to work together, downloadable guides, and ebooks. And if you're interested in becoming a guest on the show or have a guest suggestion, head to lindseycortes.com/podcast, and there's a form for you to fill out to get on the show. Hey, there's more resources on my YouTube channel, Female Athlete Nutrition, Instagram at female.athlete.nutrition, and private Facebook group, Female Athlete Nutrition. I think you get the point. I'm here to support female athletes by fueling better and becoming fierce, fit, and fueled. Most importantly, if you need help, reach out. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next show.